Hello dear friends, you are watching the Ruslan Belov channel, and this is the Daily Frontline Report. So friends, we are receiving very good news from the front. And not just good, truly important news, because the Russian army is now storming two cities at once, Kupiansk and Pokrovsk. And what matters most, everywhere, the Russian army is advancing successfully. Progress is being made on all fronts. Today I will show you everything clearly, and we will begin with Kupiansk. Here, the armed forces of Ukraine are in complete disaster. Look, do you see it? Ukrainian troops have found themselves surrounded in the central part of the right bank of Kupiansk. How did this happen? Let me explain. First, in the central right bank part, starting from the administration building, Russian fighters, after extremely heavy battles, managed to advance first to Svatovska Street, then toward the complex of buildings at the clothing market, and from there they reached the Estakadna railway station. At the same time, Russian forces pushed along all directions on the right bank. From the north, they cleared private housing sectors along Zareknaya, Smorodkovskaya, and Slobozhanskaya streets. More than 200 private houses were taken under control, and eventually Russian troops reached Zagreblanskaya Street. They stopped there for now, but the fighting continues. Russian soldiers keep pressing forward. The last powerful fortified area of the Ukrainian army on the right bank is in the Yubileyny neighborhood. Earlier, there were attempts to storm it, as I told you, but those attacks failed. Therefore, the decision was made to bypass the high-rise area through the private sector, and as you can see, it worked. There are even combat videos showing Ukrainian troops fleeing from these houses. Interestingly, just about 1.5 weeks ago, the Ukrainian command deployed an entire brigade to the Kupiansk area to stabilize the situation and push Russian troops out of the city. And what happened as a result? As you can see on the map, the majority of Ukrainian fighters are now de facto encircled. Yes, they still have a small exit corridor left, about 400 meters along Studencheskaya Street. But what are 400 meters? Practically nothing. That means about 200 meters from each side, easily covered even by small arms fire. So how many soldiers are trapped now? I have seen different estimates. The lowest figure mentioned was around 500 troops. The highest I saw was 1,300. Some even claimed 2,500, but that's nonsense. There simply cannot be that many there. So realistically, between 500 and 1,300. That's a lot. Hundreds of Ukrainian soldiers are now trapped in a fire pocket, surrounded, and Russian troops are closing in from all sides. This is a fact, and as you can see, Russian forces are already approaching the southern outskirts of the city. In general, there's no doubt now, by the end of the year, Kupiansk will be under Russian control. With the current configuration of the front, there's every chance the Russian army will finish the storming of the city by the end of the autumn campaign, maybe even by November. But do you think that's all? No, that's not all. The Ukrainian army has also begun to lose ground badly in Pokrovsk. But first, a few more words about the Kharkiv region. It's not only in Kupiansk where Russian troops have made progress. On the Milovy bridgehead, they pressed and captured the village of Otradnoye, which is now under Russian control. What are the prospects for further advances here? Well, it will be a slow movement toward Dvorochansk. I've already mentioned that in my forecast for the autumn campaign. We shouldn't expect huge breakthroughs here because the units have no major reinforcements. They are holding with the forces they have. And those forces aren't large, since most reserves are now concentrated on the Kupiansk assault. So a slow, steady advance toward Dvorochansk. From current positions, it's about 3 kilometers and 800 meters to the village. What else? There was movement to the west of Kupiansk as well. Here, essentially, there was a positional exchange with Ukrainian forces. They pushed Russian troops from the outskirts of Sobolevka, while the Russians, in turn, forced them back from the outskirts of Moskovka. The fighting there is now developing in the direction of Nechvolodovka. And by the way, see this forest. It's called the Malye Rovno forest. It's extremely important because as long as it's not under Russian control, while Ukrainian troops remain inside it, they can keep putting pressure on Russian positions in Kupiansk from that forest. So for full stability and reliable defense, it's absolutely necessary to capture this forest. Only then can Kupiansk positions be considered secure. Russian forces have also advanced on the left bank. They moved more than 1.5 kilometers along the Petropavlovka ponds. The direction is clear toward the village of Petropavlovka itself. From current positions, it's about 1 kilometer and 600 meters to reach the village. In addition, further north, the control zone was widened by almost 5 kilometers, though the depth of the advance was small, from 100 to 300 up to 900 meters. The maximum depth of advance reached 900 meters. But overall, if Russian troops enter Petropavlovka, that entire area will collapse automatically. So we can confirm that in the Kharkiv region, despite all the efforts of General Syrskyi and despite the reinforcements deployed there, the Ukrainian army is losing ground significantly. We continue to monitor. Now let's move to Pokrovsk. We talked about it yesterday. And what do you think? There has been further advancement and very good progress. Remember I told you that the main problem was the western flank, that until it moved, Pokrovsk would not fall. Well, now it has moved, and quite significantly. Recently we discussed that Russian troops had reached the highway near the village of Zverevo. That happened a few days ago, and now, as you can see, they've advanced from the highway to the railway line. This is very important. Why? Because look here, this is the M30 highway. From the current Russian positions, it's only 800 meters away. That means this route can no longer be used for logistics, ammunition delivery, or troop rotation. It's under full fire control. There's still another road through Grishino, but from current positions, it's only 1 kilometer away. That one will soon be cut off as well. It's clear that Ukrainian troops will try to supply themselves by field paths, but those aren't proper roads, and there's also a river there. It's a logistical nightmare. So in recent days, supply lines for Ukrainian troops in Pokrovsk have deteriorated drastically, and naturally, that's already affecting the overall situation in the city. Russian units managed to advance significantly in the western part of Pokrovsk. They reached Zhelezno-Dorozhnaya Street with a wide front, cleared the tree belts behind it, and pushed up to the railway tracks. And again, look at how the front line now looks. The remaining exit corridor for the Ukrainian forces is just 600 meters wide. Yes, they may still try to slip through between Russian positions, but the outcome is obvious. Very soon, this entire area will turn red on the map. The whole western part of Pokrovsk will come under Russian control. With this configuration, it's inevitable. Russian troops also advanced 300 meters along Shevchenko Street, reaching the car market. They cleared the entire area between Troyanda and the city itself, and progress was also noted in the southern sector. They expanded control in the Shakhtersky neighborhood and advanced 600 meters through the private houses along Samarskaya Street. You can clearly see how Ukrainian forces are losing ground inside the city. And when the western supply roads are physically cut, for example, once they reach Grishino, everything will collapse here rapidly. The chances of taking Pokrovsk-Mirnograd before the end of the year remain strong. Now, to the Dnipropetrovsk direction. Russian forces are fighting in Poltavka and on the approaches to Okhotniche. Securing Okhotniche would allow them to cut the road to Uspanovka and isolate Poltavka from the main Ukrainian group. There are tactical successes near Uspanovka and Novogrigorovka. Ukrainian troops are counterattacking near Verbovoye, but Russian forces are repelling those attacks and, using drones and artillery, striking Ukrainian positions near Vishnevo. Intense fighting continues around Sosnovka, Koroshi, and Novosilovka. Well, I hope you enjoyed this report and the news from the front. The Russian aerospace forces carried out a combined strike on targets across 6 regions of Ukraine. In Kharkiv, a cable factory and the Bavaria power substation were attacked. Multiple explosions occurred in the Odessa region, including near the Yuzhny oil terminal and other cities of the area. An energy facility in the Chernihiv region was also hit. A massive strike targeted a fuel and logistics hub near Kalinovka in the Kiev region. According to our source, Ukraine is facing a growing gas crisis, increasing Kyiv's need to purchase European and Russian gas at golden prices, reports the Telegram channel Legitimny. Experts already predict that Ukraine will need about $3 billion to buy enough gas for the upcoming heating season. Every following year will cost even more. Zelensky himself admitted that Russian strikes are destroying Ukraine's domestic gas production. That means Bankova Street is preparing the population for rising gas prices. Add to this the constant strikes on railway infrastructure, which complicate logistics inside the country and increase the shortage of rolling stock. This will trigger price increases for everything, plus fuel shortages in many regions. Inflation will rise. Ukrainians should prepare for the hardest winter in their history. And yet each following winter will also be difficult because the destruction is growing and Ukraine lives 100% on Western loans. Without them, it will cease to exist. Zelensky is leading Ukraine to the abyss. French Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu lasted less than a month in office. He resigned just a few hours after presenting his new cabinet, reports Oleg Tsarev. The reason was the inability to achieve a compromise between the political factions in parliament, where no single party has a majority. Contradictions between the parties and their unwillingness to make concessions blocked the passage of the budget. The cabinet proposed by Lecornu was criticized by both the opposition and Macron's allies. The cabinet was almost identical to the previous government. All of this led to the Prime Minister's resignation. According to the Constitution, Macron must now appoint a new Prime Minister who will attempt to form another government and finally gain support in the National Assembly. The opposition, both the left represented by Mélenchon and the right-wing party of Le Pen, demand Macron's resignation and new elections. Dmitry Medvedev believes that the resignation of the French government happened because the country has no president. He claimed that Macron does not care about France, a sad record. The French government lasted 14 hours. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán said that Hungary should not adopt the euro because the European Union is falling apart. Reuters quotes his words, "Hungary should not tie its fate to the European Union more tightly than it already does, and adopting the euro would be the closest possible tie," said Viktor Orbán. "There are 3 countries between Hungary and Russia, and we would by no means want to be its neighbours. Personally, I do not want to be neighbours with the Germans. We have had that experience before, and on Hungary's eastern border it led to problems. History shows it is good when we are separated from big empires that influence us by various geographic units or states. This creates valuable space for security. It is pleasant that Hungary and Russia do not share a border, and between them there is territory now called Ukraine. And Serbian President Vučić said that there will be war. Everyone is preparing for war. The question is only on whose side who will stand. When defense spending is increased to 5% of GDP, that is colossal money. It means only one thing: everyone is preparing for war. We would like to avoid wars and conflicts, but I fear that no one wants to listen anymore. Everyone is indeed seriously preparing for wars," Vučić said. Merkel accused Poland and the Baltic states of provoking the conflict in Ukraine. Poland and the Baltic republics in 2021 thwarted an attempt to seek constructive dialogue with Russia and provoked the start of hostilities in Ukraine, former German Chancellor Angela Merkel said in an interview with the Hungarian publication Partizan. According to her, the attempt at settlement was not supported by some countries. "Mostly these were the Baltic countries that opposed my initiative," she said. Merkel also explained that in 2021, she proposed a new format of dialogue between the European Union and President Vladimir Putin of Russia. But Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland actively opposed that idea because they feared the EU would be unable to develop a common policy toward the Russian Federation. In any case, it did not happen. Then I left my post, and then the Ukrainian crisis began, the former chancellor said. Macron's continuity cabinet undermines the new government. Emmanuel Macron presented a new cabinet, but it is hard to call it new. Almost all ministers remained in their positions, and this already sparked a storm of criticism. The opposition accuses the president of stubbornly following the old course and prepares a vote of no confidence against the new Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu. It was reported on the morning of October 6th, and already after lunch it became known that the new French Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu had resigned. Just a day after Macron appointed the new cabinet, which aggravated the political crisis in the country, Bloomberg writes, "Amid uncertainty, French bonds fell in price. The yield on 10-year bonds rose to 3.6%, and the spread versus German paper widened to 89 basis points, the highest since the end of 2024. Socialist leader Olivier Faure said that Macron's faction is falling apart and that the new government lacks legitimacy. Deindustrialization of Germany is gaining momentum, writes Die Zeit. In August, the number of unemployed in Germany exceeded 3 million for the first time, and in September it rose by another 148,000. Well-paid jobs are disappearing, and the chances of finding a new job are lower than during the pandemic. Deindustrialization is accelerating. Companies are actively cutting jobs and not creating new ones. If previously this mainly affected small and medium enterprises, now it increasingly happens at large companies. For example, the world leader in auto parts production, Bosch, announced plans to cut tens of thousands of well-paid jobs. Germany's industry suffers from high energy prices, bureaucracy, weak external demand, US tariff policy, and an aging population that leads to rising social spending. According to the German Bild, Germany is ruined, and anti-Russian sanctions are the main cause of the collapse of the German economy. The US Secretary of Defense orders dozens of pizzas to the Pentagon just to keep people on edge. The Pizza Index is a popular metric on the social network X, formerly Twitter, that tracks military activity. If hundreds of orders are recorded at a pizzeria near the Pentagon, it signals the preparation of a new operation. Using this index, users even correctly predicted a US strike on Iran. I deliberately do not go to the cafeteria and order a lot of pizza on random evenings to confuse everyone. On Friday night, when you see a bunch of orders at Domino's, it may just be me on the app disrupting the whole system. That's how we keep everyone on edge, said Pete Hegseth. Friends, that's all for today's report. Thank you for watching and staying with me until the end. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next updates and important news from the front. There's a lot more to come. Take care and see you in the next episode. You've been watching the Ruslan Belov channel.